Hello everybody and welcome back to LRN, where we have our tree up, we've got our jumpers on. It is officially December, so we are going into the Christmas period, but we've still got F1 news coming out, we've still got new comments coming out, and today we are looking at comments being made by George Russell around his relationship with Lewis Hamilton, what that's going to look like next year when he believes they're going to be more challenging towards the front, and how that's going to impact their relationship. And we asked the question, is George Russell being naive, and what is Hamilton's sort of element to that relationship going to be? And I'm also going to offer an early prediction as to what I think Mercedes are going to achieve in 2023 next season. If you are new around here though, please make sure to subscribe on the bottom right hand side. It really helps the channel out, and hit a like on the video if you do enjoy it. And of course, these questions are to you as well, the F1 fans. So let me know in the comments below what you think as we go through the discussion. So we're going to kick off then with some comments made by George Russell in an interview he's just done. So he started out by saying, and this is on the what it's going to be like for him and Hamilton if they're competing with each other next season. So if you are fighting for 1-2s, there will be a slightly different dynamic, and that's only natural. But I think the thing we have going for us is the fact that we are very different stages of our career. It kind of feels like we are in this together, really. Stop it there for a second. Straight off the bat, I don't feel like he fully understands Hamilton, how competitive Hamilton is. The fact that he's talking about the fact that at different stages of their career, and the fact that it feels like they're in it together. George, I can tell you right now, Hamilton is in this for himself. He may use you as a benefit, absolutely. When things are going well, he's a good guy to have around, and I'm sure you'll have a good relationship. But the idea that he's in there going, come on, let's work together, let's do this as a team, will only happen for as long as it benefits him. I think we've seen it multiple times in the past. We've seen him come to blows with the likes of Rosberg and Alonso, and you can put as much blame as you like in either side, but he is not afraid of some direct competition, and he's not afraid to let it impact personal relationships if it means that he performs professionally. So I think straight off the bat, George is kind of underplaying the way that Hamilton will approach this next season. He goes on to say, if we get to next year and we've got a car that's capable of 1-2 finishes, we will have a huge amount of pride in thinking we have contributed together in helping the team achieve this. And then we go about our business. Again, I don't think that he really understands the difference here. And look, we don't really know whether the way he's talking is how he truly feels, if it's a bit of PR for Mercedes. But I do think there's an element of naivety here. I do think that he doesn't seem to understand that it's a very different concept and mindset. Of course, he's had a year at Mercedes, but he hasn't had a year at Mercedes where they are truly fighting at the front. And it is a different world. It's a completely different world when you're challenging for championships. We've just seen it with Perez and Verstappen, how without really too much history between the two that we've seen as fans, of course, we know what Verstappen said about Monaco and things bubbling under the surface there. But in general, there wasn't too much going on between those two drivers. Perez very much supporting Verstappen, but even they managed to have a fight towards the end of the season in terms of their falling out and a battle with their relationship. So the idea that, whatever happens, Russell and Hamilton will be happy days, I don't think he really sees the fact that Hamilton, especially the competitor that Hamilton is, he will want to win and win at any cost necessary. And if that means pushing his teammate off the track, costing Russell race wins, or due to strategy decisions, Hamilton will fully expect Mercedes to back him and put him at number one. When they're challenging for race wins, he will have accepted it when they're, 5th, 6th, wherever they're fighting for, 3rd, 4th. He'll accept it and he'll go, for the team, let's just get as many points as we can. And I understand that this season from Hamilton. But if they're truly challenging at the front, if they are challenging for race wins, if he sees Russell as competition for that world championship, that ends. Hamilton will do everything in his power to beat Russell. And yes, when he's on the mic, when he's in his interviews, when he's in his press conferences, I'm sure Hamilton will sing the party line. He'll be there saying, no, we're in this together. It was the right strategy for the team. We did the right thing. And I'm, of course, there to support Russell in any way that he needs, and the team comes first. I'm sure he'll be saying all of that as we progress through the season. But we all know that underneath it all, Hamilton is an absolute monster. And he will not put anyone first except for himself. I won't have it any other way. I think when push comes to shove, he has to make that decision to choose himself or the team or Russell, of course, he's fighting for himself and he will pounce on Russell. And I'm getting this impression that Russell's kind of like a gazelle in the wild, and Hamilton is the lion, ready for the hunt. And the gazelle's kind of there, not really aware of him. Maybe they're in a zoo and he even thinks that they're friends. But Hamilton will be there waiting to pounce. And when that moment comes, Hamilton will be the first one to do it. I just don't think that Russell's not sounding like he's got that ruthless streak in him that he's going to need if he truly wants to challenge for a world title. We know how talented he is. We know what a good season Russell has had. But if he really wants to challenge Hamilton in the same machinery for a world championship, it's not just about being fast. It's about having that ruthless streak. It's about having it in you, to put yourself first and to really be a bit selfish. And we've seen how effectively drivers like Hamilton, like Schumacher and Verstappen at the moment have done that, and really do put themselves first in the team to make sure they achieve their goals. And I don't think it's going to be any different when we see them challenging at the front, if we see them challenging at the front next season. So that, to me, I think Russell does come across a bit naive in that scenario. So he goes on to say, we recognise the importance of that within the whole team. If our relationship starts to break up, it's going to have an impact on the team, and ultimately it's going to go full circle and affect us as well. I think we can continue to build off this, and if anything, our relationship will probably get closer as time goes on. But we've got no reason to have conflict. We have got a good relationship. We need to give each other respect, and I think we gave each other respect in Mexico as an example. We recognize the importance of that within the whole team. If our relationship starts to break up, it's going to have an impact on the team, and ultimately it's going to go full circle and affect us as well. I think we can continue to build off this, and if anything, our relationship will probably get closer as time goes on. And I think the theme continues. Russell very much in the vein that, we've been told essentially by Toto and the team, we need to put the team first. We need to have this relationship dynamic. We know Toto's come out in the past and said he will never allow the dynamic that we saw between Hamilton and Rosberg to come into Mercedes again, because it was so toxic, because it really did cost the team points through the season. They really were bad teammates, Rosberg and Lewis, and I don't think it would get to that level. I don't think Rosberg's got the same personality. I don't think Russell's got the same personality as Rosberg, so I wouldn't expect it to be as explosive. But I do think that Russell just comes across as really kind of, as I say, naive to the fact that if it comes down to it, Hamilton will not hesitate to put himself ahead of Russell and risk that relationship. And yes, he'll be there going, oh, we'll have a meeting, we'll have a discussion, we understand what happened, and they'll go through the normal PR stuff we hear as fans after the race. But in the mind of the driver, I think Hamilton will be fully aware his time in the sport is, generally speaking, of course, closer to the end than it is to the beginning, unlike Russell. And if he wants to win that 8th world title, when he looks back on it, they're not going to be talking about how well Russell and Hamilton got on as friends. They're going to be talking about whether or not Lewis won that 8th world title, and he knows that full well. And I'm really, really interested to see how this relationship truly does progress and change as that fight goes on. And personally, I kind of see it like Perez and Max, where when those two drivers are on form, Max is just too quick for Perez, so you don't really see them so close together on the track for it to really be an issue. I have a feeling that's going to be what we see with Russell and Hamilton, potentially, where we saw at the beginning of this season Lewis struggle with the car, and that's where Russell managed to get a good points margin to Lewis, and that kind of carried through the season. That's not happening next year. Hamilton's fully up to speed with these cars. Mercedes, I think, are fully up to speed with these cars, and we're going to see a resurgent Hamilton. And I personally don't think that Russell can keep up with a Hamilton who is on form, on fire, and you got to remember, when he's in a position where he can potentially fight for race wins, Hamilton's a different animal. We're not going to have this nicey Hamilton that Russell's been talking about here. We're going to see that Lewis, hammer time Lewis, who's going for those race wins. So for me, I think that one of two scenarios happen. We either see them competing directly with one another and that relationship breaks down quick, or we see Lewis fast enough that he can stay far enough ahead of Russell that Russell's basically forced into a position as a support driver, like Bottas essentially did for Lewis for so many years. And therefore that protects the relationship because they're never truly challenging right wheel to wheel through race in, week in, week out. That I could see, and of course it will chop and change from race to race. We know that some races they'll be closer than others, but I think through the course of the season, Hamilton will win between the two drivers, and then it will be a case of how often do they come head to head that really starts to chip away at this relationship that they're putting forward as the image at the moment. I don't think Hamilton will hesitate to throw that relationship away if he thinks it's going to benefit him to win his 8th World Championship. That's my view anyway. Please let me know your views in the comments below. Really keen to know what you think will happen between the two as their relationship progresses into 2023 and beyond. Do you think we could see a Rosberg blowout, or do you think it was going to be somewhere in the middle? It's not going to be the happy days of, we did have times with Bottas and Hamilton where it did get a bit, but of course then Hamilton would go on to win so comfortably that that relationship kind of fixed itself. I think we could end up sort of a middle ground between the two, between the happy days of Bottas Hamilton and the bad days of Rosberg Hamilton. I think we're going to be somewhere in the middle, depending on how close Russell can stay to Hamilton. But I certainly think at this stage there is a lot of naivety coming from Russell's side of the garage, and I think that could really put him behind Hamilton. Going into next season, there's going to be a moment where Hamilton's going to pounce and Russell's going to miss out, or and it's going to be interesting to see how he reacts to it. That's my view anyway. Let me know yours in the comments below. Let's go with my prediction then. So I've got a prediction for next season, and I predict that Mercedes will win the World Championship next year. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to win the drivers. We know how good Red Bull are at winning a drivers' championship without winning a constructors, and I think that could be again the challenge that we see from Max and Red Bull next year, is that we see a Max Verstappen challenge for the drivers. But I think next season Mercedes are rising back to the top, and they're going to be challenging, and I think out in front for the Constructors' World Championship, and there'll be a battle between a few drivers for the drivers potentially, which could be really exciting. Please, please, please let the challenge go to the end of the season. Whoever wins it, let's see it go to the end. But for me, I think prediction is Constructors' Championship, Mercedes, Drivers' Championship is going to be down to Max, Lewis, and maybe Charles in the Ferrari. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out next season. Let me know your predictions for next season in the comments. Otherwise, just going to thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Goodbye.